Mandalas of the World, a meditating and painting guide. Apologies, I don't know how to say the author's name, but Rudiger Dahlke, I hope. The true center of a circle is a point. A point has neither dimension nor place. Thus, the point withdraws from our perception as well as from our imagination. It does not belong to our world, because in our world everything has extension and dimension, because our world is form. The point belongs to another order of being. It exists beyond our world. It is metaphysical in the literal sense. The point symbolizes unity, independent existence, perfection. It is therefore, in almost all cultures and times, also a symbol for God. The point contains everything, but only in the potential, not in the manifest condition. Circle and globe are born from it. They are forms of revelation of the point. What is still metaphysical potential in the point comes, through circle and globe, into form. The circle is a point plus dimension. Therefore the circle lives through its central point and is defined by it, even when we cannot comprehend this point. The point and the circle, God and the world, the one and the many, the unmanifest and the manifest, content and form, the metaphysical and the physical, all these terms mean the same. One need only think of the relation of the seed to the grown plant in order to realize that the whole is already contained in the part. We human beings always need dimensions, the world of visible forms, in order to recognize therein the invisible. Thus, we need a body in order to be able to experience our consciousness. The world of the visible is the vehicle that lets us come into contact with transcendence. God manifests himself in the world, the Christians would say, and in Buddhist thought, nirvana and prakriti are identical. Sufi master Ibn Arabi means the same when he says, with certainty nothing else exists but God the Almighty, his qualities and his actions. Everything belongs to him, stems from him, and moves toward him. Were he separated from the world for the period of the twinkle of an eye, the world would disappear at this moment. The world can exist only through the fact that he preserves it and watches over it. Indeed, he creates the light so powerful that it exceeds our capability of perception, and we can only recognize his creation, which disguises him. Ibn Arabi, Journey to the Master of Power. Comprehension of this paradoxical connection between reality and illusion can save us from extreme behavior, to which we too willingly submit. Either we lose ourselves in the world of form, materialism, or we try to flee from the world of form into the illusion that one could find outside of the world, spirituality. We cannot flee from the world since it only exists in our minds. Therefore, we have to use the world for our path to the center, to salvation. To use the world means to live in it, to consciously come to terms with it, to work in it, to play with it, to dance with it, and thus take it as a pathway to find the point in which the diversity unites. The law of the world is movement. The law of the center is peace. Life in the world is movement, activity, dance. Our life is a constant dance around the center, a constant circling around the invisible one, to which we, just like the circle, owe our existence. We live out of the center point, even when we cannot perceive it, and we long for it. The circle cannot forget its origin. We also long for paradise. Whatever we do it because we seek our center, the center. Behind every act is the wish for change, a dissatisfaction with our lot. As long as human beings are in the world, they will always act, always change, because in the world there cannot be any constant satisfaction. Only by reaching the center, by entering the point, are we redeemed and freed of our dissatisfaction. But where can one find this point? Nowhere, since it has no place. Everywhere, since it is the basis of all being, we have to learn to draw our circles, to let them get tighter and tighter until our whole life circles around the point. It's no accident that the old Greek word for to sin also means to miss the point. If we miss the center, we live in sin because we are separated from God. It is necessary to overcome this separation, to bridge over this abyss. The steady circling around the invisible center is the archetypical pattern of our life, and it is the basic pattern of the dance. The dance is a ritual, an imitation of human life. Thus, one can use the dance, as the dervishes do, for example, as a means to achieve. This book also deals with a rite. It is not primarily a book to read, but a book that invites you to ritually circle around the center. It is therefore an unusual book. A book that wants more than just to be read and understood. It wants to lead to experiences. It wants to expand the consciousness. We can do justice to the term painting book only if we understand painting as a rite, as the microcosmic imitation of a forever valid original pattern. Every act remains meaningless and senseless until we comprehend it as a rite. Only when we become aware that every human action is a formal expression of content and the pattern behind it, do we begin to comprehend our life as right. Then suddenly we realize that it is not so important what we do, but how we do it. Zen monks make such simple acts as sitting, walking, drinking tea, and shooting arrows into rituals, and thus transform their acts into teaching devices on their path. The intention of this book is to teach you not how to paint pictures with nice colors, but how to perform this act so consciously that one discovers the whole in the part. Rudiger Dahlke has looked at the most diverse forms and has suddenly seen in everything the original pattern of the being, the mandala. He now invites you in this book to consciously interact with this pattern. We all constantly dance around the center, but we have to bring more and more of our awareness into experiencing the laws of the dance. This book could very well help in doing that. Enough said. It is time for movement. Thorwald Detlefsen, Munich. Preface. This book that you just opened is not even a finished book yet. In contrast to most other books, it still needs your collaboration and willingness to find its true form. Yes, this time, instead of reading a book, you actually entered on a path. Neither will you find a structure at the beginning. That structure or order will become evident on your path. This path also does not lead straight from the beginning to the end, but rotates in circles and spirals around the center. That center that is also your own. The path of this book will come close to the center and then withdraw from it. It will touch and then let go again. It will travel around in a circle, according to the mandala. If you go around with it and follow its spiral windings, you will not feel dizzy, but whenever you offer resistance to the dance around the center, you will experience this resistance as discomfort. You will feel dizzy, maybe even lose your way. The outer path results from theory and practice, and here especially from painting and meditation exercises. Whenever there is something to paint, you will come across the following sign, a paintbrush. References to these and other exercises are also marked with a line on the left side, such as you find next to this paragraph. If you follow these outer guideposts trustfully, everything else will resolve by itself. Prehistory. It is not our intention to lay out before you everything we know about mandalas. Wherever information comes up, it is meant to be a suggestion or a stimulus that may take you deeper in one or the other direction. We will only touch upon some major areas of knowledge and leave out others entirely. Some we will merely observe from a distance. So as you can see, it is not important for you to absorb all suggestions, not even to understand all of them. The goal of this path is not the understanding, but the experience of the mandala. This book wants to become the Ariadne thread to guide you through your personal labyrinth, a guide to your own mandalas, to the experience of the universe as mandala. As long as necessary, this path will be accompanied by my words, but much more important is your willingness to open up to your own experiences, to find your own way, and to play the game. In fact, this book should become a toy for you. If you are of the opinion that you are too old to play, too far beyond the time for coloring books, ask yourself if you are also too old for the path and the life. Playing is not so easy. Most adults have long unlearned it, and to do it now intentionally is exhausting because, like the meditation, the play also lives through unintention. Meditation and play have several things in common. Meditation deals with the center. Most games circle around a center. Children play out of their inner center, and out of it they bring almost unlimited energy and joy. Games such as Ring Around the Rosie, Jump Rope, the Hula Hoop, or Spinning the Top illustrate this principle. All these games are of course behind us, but if we take a closer look, we see that adults also enjoy dancing around the center, except that they make it tougher on themselves. Take a look at the rides at a country fair, for example. Many of these complicated vehicles trace their origins back to the carousel, which revolves around a center. And if you feel too grown up for that, you might like to try hitting the bullseye at a shooting gallery, or getting together with some friends in a cozy mood at a round table. In many dances, the moment of the turn around one's own center plays the decisive role, most distinctly in the waltz, and the waltz has maintained its outstanding popularity through the years, because children and adults both enjoy dancing around their own center. But all these situations, I cannot really do for my readers anything that they are not willing to do for themselves. This book of mandalas makes that especially clear, because at first it might appear boring and colorless. It will remain this way if you will not let your energy flow into it and make it your book. But then it can reflect your total inner diversity and colorfulness, and can become your most individual and your very own book, possibly the first one that you yourself ever created. The choice. When you experience resistance to the unfamiliar structures presented in this book, make yourself aware of what you are doing right from the beginning. This is the basic situation that we find ourselves up against. We face again and again seemingly unfamiliar structures, which we perceive as rules, instructions, restraints, and laws on the outside. One possibility is to fight against these structures, but there is another choice. We can also accept them and make them our own. Yes, recognize them as our own, and finally experience that everything is always only imitation. Imitation of what already was, and is, and will be. This path demands victims. Already now, we are challenged to sacrifice our illusion so that it is possible to create something of our own, something new, out of our freedom. This realization may be depressing at the beginning, but, experienced in its total depth, it is only liberating. A guru expressed this in the following parable. The family of the white clouds that float in the blue sky divides itself into two groups. On the one side is a large group of clouds whose goal is to get to the warm south. They suffer a lot, especially when the wind blows them north, west, or east. On the other side, there is a small group that has realized that it is their destination as clouds to be driven by the wind. They have no goal, or only one, to follow their path, their destination, the wind, and thus they are always in harmony with themselves and the goal. But at the end of the day, all the clouds are at the same place. The paradox. Here, now, decide for yourself. Do you have a reading and textbook in front of you, or an experience and to-do book? In case you chose the first version, maybe thinking, I will read that now, my wife can fill in the colors, she has more time. It is probably best that you stop reading immediately after this paragraph and leave it to that someone else who has the time. Because what I really have in mind, the path back to the center, is an idea, and my courage to do this book grows out of the hope that this idea can be read between the lines, that it speaks out of the pictures, and comes across in the exercises. I trust that those who want to accompany me on this path already carry this idea in themselves, and that step by step, they will remember, as the idea in me meets the idea in you and unites with it, the one, the center of the mandala, withdraws itself from all intellectual presentations, but nevertheless lives in all of us. We will not be able to find it with the help of our willpower or our intellect, but those two faculties take part in the process. They get a sense and a task. Unfortunately, willpower and intellect do not suffice. Also, our language, which usually expresses our thinking fairly well, does not facilitate the path to our center. On the contrary, it seems that it leads us away further and further, that it engages us more and more in the world of 10,000 things. Even so, our language is helping us, because the further it leads us away, the closer it also leads us. That sounds like a paradox. It is one. Let's put ourselves into the following situation. We take a jet plane and remove ourselves from a point of the mandala, Earth, going more and more in one direction. The farther we travel from that starting point, the closer we are moving back to it, in the world we live in, the world of the mandalas. The symbol. It is all right for us to entrust ourselves to language, since we know that it leads us indirectly, because language lives through images, but pictures and symbols can lead us directly. Circle, wheel, and mandala are, after all, symbols. The intellect may go with us on this journey, and it may have fun, especially since it will have to remain uncomprehending when confronted by the essential. The symbol always contains everything, i.e., both sides of the polarity. Thus, for example, Ra stands for radium itself without distinguishing between its life-supporting and life-destroying qualities. In other words, the symbol does not exclude, but it includes. It does not restrict as words and numbers do. This way, it can never satisfy the intellect, since that thrives on exclusion and distinction. The symbol contains the paradox in itself and is therefore truer than everything else in the world of Maya, the world of appearances. We want to get closer to the symbol consciously. The key to that is so close that it already may seem banal to us. We may not even want to bother with such simple things. But nevertheless, everything is simple. It is this center we will deal with. We will travel far through various cultures and times, but still we will be concerned only with this one center. It will meet us at the most diverse places and in the most unexpected guises, but still it will always be the one center. There will be no danger in getting lost for a while in foreign parts. Let's remember the parable of the lost son. All paths lead back again, and so we will also experience that all journeys, exercises, and experiences always lead back to the one. When God had completed the creation out of the one, in his hands he finally held the key to all that was created. It was now the task of the human being to find this key. In order to enhance the mystery, he wanted to hide it as well as possible. He asked the heavenly advisors for ideas, and they suggested plenty of places, as far away as the moon. But God spoke, "I want to hide it very close by and still very far away, where they will look for at last," and he hid it in the center of the human being. The world of mandalas, mandalas of the world. To rediscover as your own the forms and symbols that we came across on this journey will be easier and easier in time, because these structures are universal. They don't belong to anybody, and they jointly belong to everybody. They are the basic elements of creation, part of everything, and at the same time also the whole. After all, the universe itself is a mandala consisting of countless mandalas of the most varying dimensions. Here is a spiral nebula. Each mandala is at the same time universe, as the word says, the one and the diverse, or, out of the one grows the diversity, behind all diversity lies the one. Also our own tighter universe, our solar system, is a mandala. As we can see already, our Earth is a mandala. If we come closer, we find the oceans of the world. Their elements are water drops, and thus mandalas. The firm structures, the land and the mountains, are built from minerals. Their basic elements are the crystals, and many crystals again form mandalas. Here is a such crystal mandala. Everything alive, plants, animals, and human beings, consists of cells. Each cell is a mandala. Every cell has a nucleus, and this one is a mandala. The division of this nucleus leads to 2 new cell mandalas. This way grows the living world of the mandalas. Here is a cell nucleus in the process of cell division. All cells and crystals, and everything on this planet, consist of atoms, and each atom is a mandala. After the atom, the scale becomes too small for us, and we do not recognize the next smaller structures. A similar thing happens when the structures become too big. Not too long ago, the structure of the mandala, of the atoms, and even longer ago, also the one of the cell and the spiral nebula, was unknown to us. But does it mean that because we didn't know of it, it did not exist? It certainly did exist. We see it in the rose windows of Gothic architecture and even earlier. We see it in the Celtic motif. The red thread. As on the outside, so on the inside. No matter how far our modern researchers advance, they find only the same basic patterns that we already can find in ourselves. As above, so below. As on the outside, so on the inside. We cannot avoid this timeless law as we explore the mandala, and it will be, above all, our own experience that we will be concerned with. Our subject makes that easy. In fact, it is actually difficult to become absorbed in a mandala and remain unaffected by it. It is equally difficult to look at a rose window of a Gothic cathedral without being touched by it. Yes, it is almost impossible to create mandalas without being moved inwardly. The mandala is movement, is a wheel of life, the image of the universe, constantly emerging from the one center, striving towards the outside and at the same time converging out of the diversity to the one center. Every person recognizes this basic pattern because it is carried within the self. It is easy to open up to this understanding, and we want to keep to an easy path. If you make this book to your own, if you want to search for your path, then from now on you have only to make sure that form and content stay in harmony. Take the tasks that come towards you, really just as they come, without judging them. This is too childish for me. It cannot become childlike and playful enough. It's worthwhile to work right through. Don't try to smuggle yourself past it or leave out or skip mandalas. Instead, go step by step, consciously painting, reading, creating through the labyrinth of the book, which by itself is a mandala, and thus you spin a magic red thread through your own inner maze. Paint the fantasy mandala from the inside to the outside. Follow your spontaneous inspirations and ideas concerning color and material. The structure itself may serve as a pointer or guidepost. Even if it seems to you imperfect and defective, accept it for the time being and experience what comes of it. Just as the pattern may be technically imperfect, your execution may have technical deficiencies. Allow that, after all, technique is not what this is all about. The patterns intentionally have not been created by specialists. It is meaningless to leave the execution to experts. This book is about yourself.